Press. Press the button.
Alright, fantastic. Alright, let's start with bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Lord God, King of the universe, who gives the Torah of truth and the good news of salvation to his people Israel, and to all the peoples through his son Yeshua the Messiah, Lord. Amen. Alright, open up to Devarim, Deuteronomy 40:12. 26. No, 17. Remember we did 18 and then we skipped 17 and then last week we went back to 17, so now we're doing 19. This is a real, it's the living word. As if we can only discuss a chapter, so you have to live it out the next week and then the next chapter. That's what's crazy interpretation of it anyway.
Let's just rewatch it.
Alright. Okay, so basically, very quickly, someone give me a rundown. 17, what did we discuss? So that was last week.
The death sentence?
Okay, is that 18 or 17?
17.
17.
17.
Look at the root of Torah.
Okay, we looked at the root of Torah. What is the root of Torah? Yara, Yofi. What else? Kings?
Yeah, it wasn't that Israel despised Samuel the prophet, though it was that they, not despised, but they wanted a king instead of God being their king. So the king's job was to write down Torah to make sure that he was following God's instruction and shining being the leader.
What was the main problem?
Is it that, what, with
Them
Israel?
asking for a king. They wanted to be like the nations, okay? That's what led them to that thinking, okay? So God knew they were going to go that way and he gave them structure for it. 18, what did we discuss? What did we discuss? That back was 2 weeks before.
Wasn't it about there's a prophet coming like?
Alright, yeah, we spoke about priestly gifts, we spoke about prophecy, okay? And remember what that was supposed to represent. And then the last thing we discussed was when Moshe said, there will be a prophet coming like me. And we did that parallel between Moshe and Yeshua. Right, okay, so that was sort of the last thing, okay? And then he obviously, he gave warnings about don't be silly if you're a prophet and how to test it. Okay, more or less on the same page, try and get book in order.
We looked at also last week the different levels. So the
Yeah, the trash. Okay, yeah, the different levels of interpreting scripture. Okay, right. So, 19 verse 1. When Adonai your God cuts off the nations whose land Adonai your God is giving you, and you take their place and settle in their cities, their houses, you are to set aside 3 cities for yourselves in the land that Adonai your God is giving you to possess. When he does this, not if, maybe, the if comes a little banana. Okay? Remember, he's already given stipulations for his covenant, this is what he's going to do. But he says, when I do this, when God does this. Let me just pause there for a second. How many times in our situations in our lives do we want to do stuff? Let me say this without sounding mean. It's difficult for me.
Just say it.
I say stuff and then later I go, oh, maybe there was some credence for that. So there's a little bit of balance. I'm trying to get the balance before I say it.
So we can take it.
Okay. We've heard it, sort of the expression that says, do as much as you can do and then let God. Yes?
Yes.
Alright. I'm not going to comment on that. I am going to have a little addendum. I disagree slightly. Hezekiah knew that Assyria was coming, and then he came and he built up fortifications and he did some crazy things that had to be with God's help. Anybody who's walked through Hezekiah's tunnel, blocking off the water source, bringing it into the city and doing all of that. Isaiah did not walk up to him and pat him on the back and go, that's it my boy, do everything you can and then we will pray. That's the last resort. He said, you've done all of this for nothing, but you have forsaken your God. You see, his defenses weren't going to save him. God was going to. And if you go look at the story of how God saved them, they didn't get into a stage where there was a siege to the point where ballista was flying and the walls were holding strong and God strengthened the walls that Hezekiah had built. God doesn't do it that way. He might, but the simple fact of the matter is he said, I'm going to give you a victory here. And he sent one angel against the most bloodthirsty nation, military might at that time. Oh, disco music. You win again. One angel against 185,000 Assyrian soldiers. One night. He says, when I give you this victory, you will know that it is Adonai. You will know that it is God. And listen to this. God knows what's coming. If you go look at what Joshua and them are going to do, they're going to know the battle is showing up and going, I don't know what to do. And then you have to sit on your hands a little bit until he gives you the instruction. Joshua looked at Jericho after the crossing over and rededication at Gilgal. That was awesome. They had lots of fun there. And then he stands over there and it said he was looking at Jericho, puzzling over how they were going to do this. He could not understand how them, let's face it, when they left Egypt, they never left with ballista. You know, what made Egypt strong is when they picked their battles very tactically. Alright? The Philistines were also very good at this. And when you go to Israel, you start to understand why it's a bit of a conundrum. You have the plains people, which were the Philistines, a civilized bunch. You know, they were literally, I mean, we said, don't be such a Philistine. In that time, it was kind of the other way around. Don't be such a Hebrew. Living in the hills there was shit. Civilization meant being a Philistine. They were the first nation that were able to mine iron and make it. Where people were fighting with bronze shields, the Philistines were coming out with iron. When you have, these sort of steel chariot little frames, or these bronze chariot frames, you have iron chariots. Now, if there's a collision, you obviously know which one's going to win. Okay? So you have these people, and what made the Philistine very strong is when they pick their battles, when you go on the side of, sort of when you're driving up the coast or along that side, when you have the 5 Philistine cities where they were prominent in. Anybody remember them? Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ashdod, Ekron, Gaza, and Gaza. Yeah, you see, we didn't get rid of the Philistines, we still have Gaza today. It's a problem. So there are certain Goliaths, now they throw missiles instead of coming in with bombs. Right? They're still saying the same blasphemies about our God. Okay? Same issue. We never got rid of them in the land and we're still dealing with the problem. As God said in Torah, they will be a thorn in your side. And instead of listening to God and getting rid of people that are not on the same page, pressures from the world, don't worry, we'll give them back the land and now we're sorry we did. It's a problem. Okay? But anyway, Nile, Egypt areas were very flat. The Philistine areas were very flat. They fought with chariots and it made them very strong. When you start going up towards Jerusalem, it's hills. Alright, there's sort of this, you have moments of valleys, and you get 2 different types of valleys. People laugh when I tell them the flattest place in Israel is your hotel room. Can't be true until they walk with me. You get 2 different types of valleys, okay? You have something along this line, which is an emek, okay? It is a much wider valley. So it's a type of thing where you sit and you see a hill, and then it's a couple of kilometers, and then you'll see another hill. And then you get a gate, okay? Gechinom, the valley of Hinnom, which is a much sharper valley. Very good for natural fortifications. This type of emek is where David took on Goliath, the valley of Elah. Okay? So when you get there, you will see there's a point where plains, chariots, strength, and then hills. So you see, he called them out, and neither of them wanted to move because the Israelites knew if we were sitting on the hills, they can't use their chariots. And the Philistines knew is how do we lure them out to bring them onto our playing field so we can use what makes us strong. See, the whole point of that is you're relying on your own strength. What made the Philistine and what makes this a big thing is that when you sit there and you look at Goliath, armor, iron armor, military veteran, full gear, full everything, and they were standing there and he was calling out, and you had a shepherd boy. Why didn't they just kick him out with their own armor? Why did they struggle to find David armor that fitted? No, they didn't have. The only people that probably had armor was King Saul and probably Jonathan. And that was made to fit. The rest of the people had nothing. You fight with farming implements, let's go. That's how it was. David didn't go out there and go, all right, I'm going to do everything I can and then I'm going to pray God delivers me. He went up to him and he was like, okay, I'm going to use what I know, what I've been trained to do. What did Joshua get trained to do? Rely on God, because Moses was like, okay, I don't know how to do this, but God said he's going to do this. And then it happened. And God said he was going to do it, and then it happened. So Joshua is looking and he's waiting and he's going, God said you're going to do this. How do I do it? What is going to happen? Right? When Adonai, your God, there are going to be times in your life where he's going to tell you to sit on your hands and it's going to be agonizing. Because let's face it, everyone here is a control freak. When it comes to your destiny and your plans and me and how I'm going to fix it, you want to do it. You want to go off and grab it and you want to go, yes, we can do this, and we'll just pray that it works. Let me tell you, there's enough biblical evidence to realize that there's a lot of backtracking when you do that. The things you thought were going to fix you are normally the things that create the biggest snare for you. If you could have done it, God wouldn't need to. So what's the point of him doing it? And if you did it, who's the glory going to go to? Oh, pat yourself on the back after a little while and go, yo, that was a good battle, eh? We had the right men, the right time with that right advantage. That Joshua knew what he was doing, right? We're going to write the art of war and we're going to talk about strategy. No one looks around and studies the story of Jericho and looks at the archaeology and all the rest of it and goes, wow, Joshua. They look at it and they go, what went on here? These big walls that they could have chariot races out. I'll just give you a little inkling. There were two main walls, Jericho. The slope was on like this, okay? Naturally, you pick fortifications that are high up. Number one, it gives you a good viewpoint. Secondly, the steeper the valley is, the more difficult it is for anybody to conquer. Why? God, it's difficult to bring siege weapons, number one, and you're fighting an uphill battle. How many of you have ever done a little bit of a jog around the block and then you're going and you're happy and then you're loving it and then you're not? Now just imagine people with a sword facing down, sword and shield facing down. Cutting down is a lot easier than fighting up. So we're going to use every natural thing we can to try and hold our position. We can shoot our arrows a lot further because we're in an elevated position than them trying to shoot up in a little niche. It's very difficult. Okay? So you have this Jericho moment where these walls literally fell out. And the people, more than likely, after the seventh day, were sitting on the walls, my little stick men, while the people were walking around here. You know. Okay, we have church.
Sorry.
Here's all. No, because what people do, you can't even see pictures.
Only with anointed eyes.
Yeah, you must use your vision. Everybody's nodding like they understand. I can't see this. Can you see this? No, but don't let him know.
Just listen.
Yeah, it's got deep, right? Listening to the deepness that is. Okay. So they were probably standing on this wall here, and when the walls literally fell out, and then they said when they did the dig, they said they found, on the inside of the city, they found 1 meter high, a meter high, or meter deep, level of soot, of ash. And they found big evidence that the walls were broken down and then there was a great fire inside. And when you go and you study that, you realize that the only thing that can depict that sort of battle was Joshua. And they don't understand why the walls fall out. They don't understand what was going on here. But what we do understand that God said He would do it.
Which side is the city of Jericho? This side.
Inside.
Yeah, remember, up the tell. Okay? When you go and walk the tells, you'll find you get to the gate and you're like, we're here! And then you walk a little bit more, and you're a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then you'll find the other gate. Okay? It's lovely. So, the thing is this. When God promises you He is going to do something, fight every urge in your body to get up and do it yourself. If God says He will save somebody, it's not your job to do it. It's His job. Releasing it releases you from the responsibility of it. You took on a responsibility that you never had and you could never control. There are certain things that He wants to do for His glory, not yours. And that bugs some of us. Because man, if I could just give Him the perfect argument, if I could just phrase it in such a beautiful way. How long has it taken for many of you to realize that this is not an intellectual problem? This is a spiritual problem. If God has not switched on a light, you can do as many hand signals as you want. He's still not going to see it. Like, look, it's a bunny. Why don't you understand? I can't even see your hands. They cannot understand spiritual things because God has not switched on that side yet. You've got to ask God to switch on the side and then come up to them and go, okay, when they come up to you, and again, let me use another reference. How many of you have realized that, and I praise God for this, as you are learning things, God reaffirms from different angles and different people and different things. And sometimes that reaffirmation comes in the strangest places. We had a good laugh with Rebecca Annie, who was really struggling the one day about Shabbat and being here and whether this is the right place for her and all the rest of it. And then she ends up in an Anglican church and the father or pastor who was supposed to be there was sick and there was another guy and he walks down the aisle and talks to her about Shabbat. Me, I just smile and go. Don't argue with me. It's not about me. Listen, you might be in a place where you impart knowledge to someone. They might glean from you, but it's not you teaching them. That is not your discipleship program. It is not your mentorship. It is not you getting them to the next phase. It's God working through you and other people to give them exactly what they need to get them to the place where they can be effective in the body. Don't stop and look at a man or a lady and expect, yeah, no, because they say. Ultimately, man or lady is going to drop you. Dun, dun, dun. The problem is we get so caught up in people's ministry, even if they are so good, and you love the way they do things, and even when they make a mistake, you can understand, you can forgive, and you can move on. The problem is when a man builds up his ministry, when he dies, the ministry stops. We go through this process of God building, using a person to show you a light, to point him back to Him. God, not him. What was the problem when after Joshua died? There was no leader. Remember, Moses said, if you're going to take me, raise up someone after me so they can lead these people. How many of those is that your prayer? Or are you still busy focusing on what God is doing in your life that you forget about you're only one small part of God's entire picture? Maybe the big stuff is only going to happen to your kids. Moses' entire life, his entire ministry was a build-up to Joshua. I'm going to do some crazy things and it's going to be amazing. Moses isn't going to be around to see it. But it's not about Moses. You know, it gets me when people start talking about Moses' law. That's like Joshua's worship. It doesn't exist. It was God's instruction. It was God's victory. It's God's inheritance. It's God's land. It's God's plan. Where are you fitting in this? Now let me give you a nice analogy very quickly. God's still busy writing the pages. One day God's going to open up His book, the book of life, and He's going to read what you did. Are you going to be a one-liner? If you don't know what that looks like, sometimes it happens in Judges or Kings. And he became king, and he did wicked he did what was wicked in the eyes of the Lord, and then he died. Full stop. Nothing more is known about the man except he didn't follow the word. Or are you going to be a story, a page about your faith, about your love? It will be written, it will carry on for eternity, but it's just a page until the next part of God's plan. This is why things like today, you see, parents, you need to understand that you're prepping them for what's coming and what God is going to do. Because you are sitting here because someone before you was interceding on your behalf. Too many stories about Omas and Opas sitting there, and whether you wanted to listen to the word or not, he told you to shut up, sit down, and he prayed over you anyway. We miss the privilege of listening to our parents' prayers. It becomes a closed door thing. You know, one of the things you learn in a Jewish household is you learn to hear the heart of your father when he prays over you over Shabbat. I just wish you would put a love of God in my boy. I just wish you would lead him, Abba. I just wish that you would instill in him a desire for you. I wish that you would take him from night now. So when that happens, man, when that happens, he can look at his father and go, you know what, when I didn't see it, you did. And when a father turns around and he sees the joy of what God is doing in their life, I can turn around and look at my son one day, amen, amen. And I can say, it's because people pray for me that I got what I have, and I want to give you all of that. And that's all God, not me. It's not about you. It's God living through you. And if God is doing the talking, God is doing the walking, God is doing the acts, God is doing what He needs to do, let go. When God does this, not if, maybe, or but. Joshua, you're going to come into the land, it's going to be amazing. Moses is on his deathbed. It's Deuteronomy time. They're sitting at the Jordan. Don't ever doubt what God has promised. It's coming. Just because you don't see it right now doesn't mean He's not busy. Remember, He prepares the person, He prepares the place, and He prepares the people for the people. Confusing? God has to change you so that when you step into it, you come in with the right heart. You meet them at their need, because God knows He's going to put you through stuff, and maybe it's not about you. Maybe He's preparing you to go and talk to them. Very easy analogy is, I'm going to put you through some difficult times here quickly. But Abba, I thought you loved me. I thought we were all good. I thought everything was fine. No, don't worry about it. And then you come out of it and you're like, well, Abba, thank you so much for rescuing us. And then you come up and then He moves you into your function and He puts you here, and people go, we're going through a difficult time. So me as a bajillionaire looks at you and go, oh, you pleb. You're obviously doing something wrong. You just don't have enough savvy. Or do I humbly go, yeah, me, I was on mountaintop and then I got smacked down. And I can praise God now for who He showed me He is and what He did in my life. And I can tell you one thing. I might not know your situation, but I know God is faithful. I might not know where you are right now or what you're going through. If you are still with God, and that's the question. If you haven't run away from Him, you might want to turn around and come back home, because you might have created your own balagan. But if He's still with you and you haven't left Him and circumstances have changed, someone who's been there before says, you know what, it looks like it's the end, but I promise you, it's only the beginning. I don't want more of this. This sucks. This sucky period, the Bible calls the wilderness. And you know, Torah calls it great and fearful and thirsty. But Moses also said awesome and wonderful. You know, it's an interesting depiction of the plagues. Depending on which camp you were, they were scary or they were crazy, man. God's going to do what? He's going to block out the sun? Are you out of your mind? He said 3 days. No. Dude, he blocked out the sun. If you were in Goshen, you were having a good time because you had light. And you were looking at Egypt and you're going, Baruch Hashem, thank you very much that I am not there right now. The Egyptians were not having a good time. But in all of it, mercy and teaching, grace and love, trying to get you two back because God is doing something. Get out of the way. He's either asking you to get involved or He's telling you to sit on your hands. Maybe it's time you ask which one. It's difficult. It's frustrating. I'm in that zone right now. Every time I go, Abba, what are we doing? He says, I love you. Oh, that's nice. I love you too. What are we doing? I chose you. Oh, thank you. Very happy. Thank you that you chose me. What are we doing? Said, oh, okay. It's not about me. It's about Him. It's what He's doing. So that when I step back, when I look forward, I know, and I know that I could not do this. And when anybody asks the question, wow, look what Vince did. Vince is going to be. It's not me. Only God could. I struggle to remember what I said 2 days ago. You know, it's really funny. My wife laughs at me continually. I get confused walking out of a mall in the shop, right? And I don't know whether to turn left or right. Or I'll walk 10 steps and I go, I'm going the wrong way, and I'll turn around and go back. But in Israel, I don't get lost. That's weird. I can walk to a place and I can remember the smell of a place where I turned right. This is where we turn. You see, when I take people over there, I don't function in myself. He functions through me, and that's everything that needs to happen. Because if I remember what I wanted to teach, and I don't stop and think about what you are doing with this group, Abba, it's all about you. You need to change their hearts. You need to change their minds. Otherwise, it's just words. We get up and we talk and we mentor and we disciple and we lead, and sometimes you pull your hair out because they won't listen. Are you more upset because they're not listening to you? Yeah, 99% of the case, right? If they could just understand the way I do. Yeah. Maybe God's not preparing them for your calling, so maybe they need to understand it completely differently. But maybe He's teaching somebody that in 6 months' time down the line, they're going to come up and you go, they're going to quote the exact same verse and they're just going to explain it a different way, and they're going to go, oh, that makes sense. When you've been pulling your hair out for 4 years trying to get them to understand the same truth. This dose of humility, this dose of love, this dose of God moving, it is for His glory. And I love that. When Adonai, your God. Man, if He could speak the whole entire universe into existence, I think He's got you covered. We don't even look far. Just look at Egypt. Any of you do that stuff? I'm still trying to walk like my Rama. I'm still trying to figure out how to do the praying and the miracle and the stand up and walk thing. Never mind speaking things into existence so everything in the ecosystems are so perfectly balanced that if the earth was half a degree off, nothing would live. I don't even know what degree we're on. I just know I wake up and the sun's there. It's nice. He's in control. He's busy. It's for His glory. So let Him. He's going to get you to take place and you are going to settle in their cities. What other people have labored for becomes their inheritance. Maybe that's what you're preparing right now. You're so busy worrying about building your kingdom. He says, why are you worrying about building one? I've got one built already. Don't worry about those stones. You don't need to take them with them. There's a city there waiting for you. It says, you are to set aside 3 cities for yourself in the land that Adonai your God is giving you to possess. 3 cities for what? 3 3 cities of refuge? Are they 3 cities by themselves, or are they Levitical cities as well? Levitical cities, okay? Divide the territory of your land, which Adonai your God is having you inherit, into 3 parts, and prepare the roads, so that the killer can flee from those cities. Time to stir the pot. Did God not say, thou shalt not kill?
It says kills unwillingly.
No, I'm talking about now. I'm talking about the Ten Commandments.
No, I'm saying here it says.
It's not the Ten Commandments, Kev. That's Exodus. It's all good.
There's Deuteronomy.
It's completely different. Does he not say, thou shalt not kill?
It's not murder. Premeditated.
Isn't this one but doing it accidentally?
Yeah.
Oh, but it also goes into doing it with intent. But God said to you, go out and clean out the camp. Did God not send out people to go and fight in an army in a battle? Did they not kill? Was it premeditated?
Yes.
Was it premeditated?
Yes.
They didn't pick up swords and go and knock on the front door and say, give me a city. I think it was pretty premeditated.
They were warned.
You start to see how quickly we can get God of judgment and wrath and meanness and contradiction. God, when he said do not kill or do not murder, which is a better translation in my view, he goes in and he specifically talks about the mode and the intent of it. And when we get to the army thing, I'm going to explain it to you now in a bit. Okay? It says, prepare the road so that he can flee to these cities. Give him an escape route. Oh, so now God condones murder. Love it. The killer who will The killer who will live, if he flees, there is someone who has killed his fellow member of the community by mistake, who did not hate him in the past. An example would be if a man goes into the forest with his neighbor to cut wood and takes a stroke with the axe to fell a tree, but the head of the axe flies off the handle, it hits the neighbor and it kills him. Then he is to flee to one of these cities and live there. Otherwise, the next of kin avenger, in the heat of his anger, may pursue the killer, overtake him, because the distance for the city of refuge is too long, and strike him dead, even though he didn't deserve to die, inasmuch as he hadn't hated him in the past. This is why I'm ordering you to set aside for yourself 3 cities. So, who's God protecting?
Both of them.
Both. It's a horrible accident that happens. Are you to be held accountable to the death penalty for it? What is this next of kin avenger?
The father wants to kill that person.
Yeah, why does he want to kill him? That's premeditated, man.
So God's stopping the cycle of sin.
You see, in that time, there was something called the next of kin avenger. And I've done a little research into this. It's called the Go El Ha'adam. Now, this is quite funny. Sorry, is it Adam or Ha'adam? Let me check. Adam, sorry. Okay. Adam is blood. Ha is the... And this is where things get funny. This word, if you look at it, comes down from the root word, I think it was Ga'al. Actually means to redeem. When you redeem your kinsman, you bring him back into the Father's house. Let me put it to you this way in a context that it was used. God protect us from it. Someone in his fellowship, and where 2,000 years ago goes along a difficult time and their family loses the farm, he then has to sell himself into slavery. But no one else wants to help him in the community, maybe, or maybe he's too far away from everybody. And he sells himself into Gentile slavery. People that don't fear God, people that don't know him, people that are out of covenant, people that are sitting there going, they can do what they want to. This becomes property and not a brother. Right? You and the people that are closest to you, the father or the patriarch, This is also another term I want you to focus on. Something that is used quite a lot. Bet Av. The house of the father. The patriarch. Now that Bet Av, the guy who's in control of that family unit, it is his responsibility to use his resources to go and fetch him and pay the price to bring him back into daddy's house. You redeem him back to the father. Now redemption starts talking a little bit deeper here. You see, when Yeshua said, when you were redeemed through the blood of Christ, you were sold into the bondage of sin and you were held captive, and someone had to go out and he said, what's the price? And he said, me. And he says, for what purpose? To get them back to dad. You see, you have this thing where it's the household of Israel and the world. We get confused in between. You create, let me use these tools. We've got God's house, Israel, and you have the world. What we've done is we've created our own little definitions in between here. And we fully don't understand who and what we are anymore. What's the first things people ask you?
Are you Jewish?
Are you Jewish?
Why are you doing this?
Why are you
Do you fit in your Jewish box?
No.
You see, Greek thinking is definition box, I understand you. So when people say they're a believer, or you believe, right? Eventually when you have that conversation, because you know you're not allowed to talk about politics and religion. I was always taught that growing up. And I'm thinking, yeah, politics I agree with, but we should be talking about God. It's nice, you don't want to upset anybody, but I promise you I'd rather upset you and ask God to save you than lose you. Okay? So you come in and you say, oh, you're Jewish? No, I'm a Christian. Oh, okay, so what Christian are you? You're an Anglican, you're a Methodist. Oh, you're Jewish. What are you? Sephardic? Are you Ashkenazi? Are you Orthodox? Are you Reformed? Are you Messianic? And that's a whole nother. If you bring in Messianic, even these guys have subdivisions. In Yeshua's time there were 5 main groups, but there were up to 20-something subgroups. We can't even identify ourselves anymore. But in the beginning, right the way through, from the top of Torah to the whole way down, there has always been someone who's followed God and someone who hasn't. Jacob and Esau, Isaac and Ishmael, Abraham and Lot. His people, his house, his ways. Abraham got up, Lot chose the area of Sodom and Gomorrah. We find Lot living in Sodom and Gomorrah. And yet, the patriarch gets up. He gets kidnapped, he gets taken away, and he goes, Abba, I need your help. And he goes and he fetches him, and he takes on 4 kings. They just beat the snot out of 5 kingdoms. And he went up and he smacks them and he beats their backside, and he fetches everybody, including his nephew, and he brings them all the way back down. All because he understood that he was the one that had to redeem. Now if you break it up, because this is kind of one of those things, you know, Hebrew means this and that and this and that, right? It's very fun. When you actually break it up into the 3 pictographic ways, I'm not even trying to do this. My text Hebrew is very short. The letter G, okay, means to go and gather. What is L? God. Right? It's made up of 2 letters. Remember we spoke about this, okay? I'm going to take it back to the pictographic. L is actually an Aleph, the first letter. Okay, and it's roughly an ox head. Okay? And the second one is a Lamed. I can't remember what the pictographic one was. It looks, I know what it is, but the text one looks like that. It's very similar, okay? This means the first or the strongest, the head, or the first, and this is shepherd. So the very name of God, El, means the first or the strong shepherd. Psalm 23. So if I am to gather Yeshua to redeem back to the Father through the blood, something that seems very strange all of a sudden starts talking about crucifixion. It's amazing how Torah is hidden things, right? It's like in there. And we go in now with that in mind, with that sort of mindset, God in His mercy will go, there's a place of safety for you. Now listen to this, okay? This guy will go off and he will live there. And there's a stipulation in Torah that he's only allowed to come out when? When the high priest dies. Okay? So, when the high priest dies, in his death, this man who has now maybe been absent from his family for 20 years because of an accident, he gets to go back home. And this cultural next of kin, or the blood avenger, remember, we need to be careful about what God orders and what God allows for. This was a patriarchal thing. This was something that they would go in. If anybody needs to redeem someone, in this case, go and sort of go, the redeemer of blood would go out and he would be responsible to carry out the death penalty. But see what God says, lest his anger takes over him. He catches him up on the way. See, you do it because you're hurt and you're angry and you never stop to consider the person's heart or how that person is fleeing, running for his life. Can you imagine? Chas v'chalila, chas v'chalila. May God protect us from this. Someone accidentally kills a member of some family and you get to see that person every day. Your person's gone. He's alive. It was an axe head, he said. He said it never came off before. Now I can either go and I can mourn with him because he's feeling terrible, or I can start to justify in my mind why he deserves to die because my precious person is not here anymore. Now God knows how we operate. We get emotional, we get angry, and we're faced with this person day in, day out. There's a consequence to this. Even though it was an accident, this person who had the accident happen to him is no longer with us. The other guy is no longer allowed to stay with his family. He's gone now to a Levitical city and he has to stay there. He can't work his land. He has to leave his home. You understand that even accidental death has consequences.
So where is it forgiven?
So he gives them time to cool off. He gives them time to see. Sometimes the way we view things, when we thought people did stuff and they hurt us in our perception of things, many years down the line we stop to realize actually what their perception was instead of our own. And I figured that out when you start talking to your parents. Why did you stop me from going there? Oh no, because I heard this and this and this. But you never told me that. You wouldn't have believed me if I told you. So they were going to do this? Yeah. Wow, I was angry with you for like a week. But you were only protecting me? Well, boy, I love you. When do we stop and give the person the benefit of the doubt? We don't. We get hurt and it's all about us. Sorry to say. Selfishness comes in. And we go in and we look at this, right? So he protects the person and their family. And he goes in and the high priest, when the high priest dies, he's allowed to go back home. Now again, let's think about this with the crucifixion. Restoration back into the house, coming back home, underneath the patriarch. He is our high priest, yes? So in his death, even the accidental stuff gets washed away. Go back home to your Father. that making sense? We get into this, even this sort of, it's so foreign to us because, let's face it, we're a couple of thousand years down the line. A kinsman redeemer is very strange it's a strange thought. But again, I want to open up the Father's heart and what He was planning long before. Man, it's all about together, all the way to bring them back, all the way to bring them back to the first shepherd, the strongest shepherd, the head shepherd. He wants to gather His flock, He wants to bring them in. Why? Because in my Father's house, there are many rooms. There is a place for you and you will be safe. How many of these stories does He bring in? He says, Yeshua said, my sheep recognize my voice. Because when you hear your shepherd, you know your provision will be taken care of. You know with Him there is life. You know you will be kept safe and you're going to walk in that. And when a stranger talks, they run. When someone comes in against what God has told you, that you've tested, that you've faced, that you know that is correct, and someone tells you something the opposite, how many of you have had to make the choice to leave? Almost everyone in this room. And it's hard. But you're being restored to something a little bit bigger. It's not about your definition of who you are. I find that a lot of people come in here, the first time they come in here, they're like, what are we called? People. What do we call you? Vince. Why? You want to stick yourself in a box? This is what we believe, and this is what makes us comfortable. But it's not about boxes, it's about body. I don't get so stuck in it that the eyes are all in one box and then the head is in a completely different box. Last time I checked, those mushy bits of your eyeball make connection with your head, right? That's the only way it's going to work. But we've created our own church groups that do what? If we think the same, we act the same, we're comfortable being the same, so we will separate ourselves and become that. A whole bunch of eyes is not going to make a body work. You have to get together. You have to work together. You have to think together. It is no longer about what Abba is doing through me, but what Abba is doing through us. You know, when Kate stands up here and she does something, she decides to do something silly. If one of you are there, it is your responsibility to walk up to her and go, we're going home. Maybe physically, but definitely spiritually. To bring him back into his house so that he can be redeemed. It is so much deeper than a kinsman of blood who will go out and just lose his marbles and cut someone down because he is angry. That was what the world was doing. And God flips it on his head and he goes, now this is what I'm going to show you. This is how you will act. You make sure the roads are ready so he can run. You make sure you give him a place of safety when he's there. And when the high priest dies, he will be redeemed, then he can go back home. What do you think he's doing in a Levitical city anyway? Farming? He doesn't have that much space, man. He draws him closer to protect him from people's emotions, from people's angers, from a horrible situation. And he brings them into a place with people who talk Torah all the time. Wow, you just got bumped up, son. Bible boot camp for the next 20 years. What do you guys do here for fun? Well, let's be crazy and read Daniel backwards. It's all about the word, and he brings him close to. He said, you will find comfort with my priests because they will reflect me. What happens in a situation when someone hurts our boo-boos? Someone whom you love. Someone who's close to you. Whether they're a brother or sister or not. The bear comes out. Let me tell you, it's not your job to protect every single one of them in that way. Love your children. Love your spouse. Stand up for them, absolutely. But if there is a misperception about someone who accidentally hurt them because they accidentally did something, or they accidentally said something very quickly because they're in a bad mood, it is not your job to break that person down. It is your job to minister to them and love them and say, you know what you said there was kind of mean, but I want to know what's going on with you because you obviously are not okay. Instead of putting your wife or something behind you or your children behind you and say, yeah, if you and me in a dark room, we're going to see what's going to happen. Don't tell me I'm not pretending it. Mommy bears especially. But you don't want to rouse a father when he gets really upset. You need to look past yourself and get to the place of, I'm going to bring you back to the Father's house. I'm going to teach you His ways. I'm going to come in and say, all right, guys, let's get into this. What is going on in your life? I know you. Surely this is not what you meant. What is going on? Why are you hurting? Are you okay? And instead of waiting for the Redeemer to run to the city so you can have your archers ready, oh, he's running towards us. He thinks he's going to get in. Oh, he never made it. Let's give him money. Come back to the Father's house and you're going to give them their heart. You're going to give them His ways. And it blows my mind that He prepares a city. He prepares roads so that He can run. He protects the guy who's upset, who's hurting, who's dealing with loss. Don't act out in your emotions. Sometimes your emotions are wrong. We live in a day and age where we allocate our emotions with moves of the Spirit. How many of you have been around when God gives you something and your emotion says run, but you know God said go? Jonah is a perfect example. I want him. I like him. I'll go. Because I don't care what you don't like. I need you to go and save those people. Let me tell you something. When God gives you a commission, everything inside of you will try to go the opposite direction. What you learn over time, please, let us learn this, is that you need to shut up, sit down, and think about it before you start running. Before you start justifying excuses. Because the flesh inside you will kick up every time it comes into contact with the Most High. Isaiah stands before the presence of a king. In heaven he stands and he doesn't go, yeah, that's it, I've arrived, where's my seat? I'm an unclean man, unclean lips, living amongst unclean people. I should not be here. Something inside of us that just doesn't want to. It is stiff-necked and stubborn. It's a fantastic thing when you realize that you're so small that you cannot serve such an awesome God, so that when He chooses you, it blows your mind anyway. To understand who you are and who God is also set your perspectives right. That you can pull a Moses oh so quickly. I don't speak good. No, you send Aaron. No, I'm watching my father-in-law's sheep. I can't. New Testament. Let me bury my father first. I'm like, is God against burying dads? No. What he was saying in that time was, well, you know, he's probably got about another 10 years left. So I want to spend it with him. You're making an excuse not to follow me? And you're blaming your dad? And he said, let the dead bury their own dead. Dead people can't do that. Zombies weren't around, promise. He says, those people are living for the world. I'm calling you to live for me. Live for God. Come back into the Father's house. Be a Talmid. No, I want to see what my dad finishes doing first, and then I'll weigh up my options. It's a different thing. Where am I? 7? No, 8. If Adonai your God expands your territory, here's the F. When I do this, you will do that. Then there's an if. If Adonai, your God, expands your territory, what is going to be the difference between yes or no? Right. If you're willing to follow. As he swore to your ancestors that he would, well, provided you would, let me read that again. If Adonai your God expands your territory as he swore to your ancestors, that he would, and gives you all the land he promised to give your ancestors, provided you keep and observe all these mitzvot I'm giving you today, loving Adonai your God, Adonai your God, and always following his ways. Always. Not sometimes. This is why you wear your sit all the time. Why? Yeah, to remind you. Because when we don't wear sit, we don't think about it all that much. Then you are to add 3 more cities for yourselves, besides these 3 cities, so that the innocent blood will not be shed in the land Adonai your God is giving you as an inheritance. Thus, blood guilt be upon you. Not if it's a person running to a city of refuge. Because you didn't provide the way. Because you did not give him a second chance. Because you didn't open up the doors for him and bring him in. I hold you accountable for his blood. He's not accountable for the accidental manslaughter that went on. God saw that for what it is, an accident. And his life will never be the same again. Anybody who's been involved in a normal car accident, that no one dies, how many of you replay that thing over and over and over in your head? And you think, I could have done something different. Maybe if I turned left, maybe if I braked, maybe if I just stopped thinking about other stuff when I was driving. Maybe. Now in this case where someone actually died because you know it was your hand, your axe. You know what I find funny? Is that we think about the seriousness of this, but we don't give a second glance when we cut someone down with the tongue. You can speak life over that person, or you can speak death. And this is not to be overly spiritualized. This is to the point where I tell Regan he's useless and he can't do anything and he throws like a girl, and he just might as well just eat worms and die. I've been around long enough to see people, their people's opinions formed about themselves, about what other people told them they couldn't do. There was a guy I knew who committed suicide. He was unhappy and he was alone. He chose to be gay because people told him he threw like a girl, he kicked like a girl, so he might as well be. I knew the guy from young. He had girlfriends, he was happy, he was doing his thing, but that with 2 left feet was not athletic at all. His father was a chairman of a well-known football South African supporters club. Masculinity was everything. And he had a kid who couldn't kick a ball, couldn't throw a ball. Where's your refuge? People, God does not need people breaking other people down. He needs you to build them up. Yes, you might be a mess. Yes, you might be doing something stupid, but guess what? I was there as well. I might have been doing something different, but that does not mean it stops here. There's life for you, buddy. There is stores. You can choose to come and walk after God. He will take all your gunk, all your bad, and He will breathe new life into you, and He will change it forever. Be careful what you say about people. Excuse yourself from conversations where people start talking about other people. I'm not talking about joshing or joking. I'm talking about when people start bringing up other people's dirty laundry, and sometimes they might look at you and go, I need advice. I've got a friend who's hurting, who's doing something stupid. That's fine. Go back to the Word and help them and say, this is what you go and tell that person. But when you're just doing it to run them down, Lashon hara. And it comes around to the point where they just believe you useless, or even worse case. other people think they are. And you believe, or you act out what you believe, right? So if someone told you that this person doesn't know how to rub 2 cents together, and then God tells me to go to them because they're going to take care of my finances, but I remember the testimony of a man instead of what God tells me to do, which one do you think I'm going to follow? What happens if it's the last opportunity? This was going to be this person's big break, but I choose to listen to men instead of about God. Or what happens if he chooses to listen to men and he looks at all his failures, and then I have to come up to him and say, but God said, and he goes, no, I've been told my whole life I can't do this, so I'm not even going to try. People are so quick to tell you what you're not, you forget to tell you who you are. What should you be telling each other? Who are you?
Sons of the Most High. Sons and daughters of the
Sons and daughters of the Most High. What else? A kingdom of priests. Holy. What else? Brothers and sisters. Family. What else?
You do things through His grace, not through your own means.
And you can do this because God is with you. What else? Well, if I had to tell you a whole bunch of things about how to break people down, you guys could give me 15 million, but you are struggling to give me 5 decent things that are going to tell me how to build a person up.
God loves you.
Check your stories. Guys, parents, look at the way you treat your kids. I catch myself doing it. Don't. When do I tell them to do? Do this or else. It's not, that's the same as a don't. There's not much of an ultimatum there. Tell me you don't do that to your spouse. Tell me you don't do that to your God. Well, now we put some buttons, eh? You give him a list of things, sorry, you give him a list of things that he must do and things that he mustn't do. You tell your wife or your husband, you will do, or you better do, or else. How am I building up anybody? How am I redeeming anybody? How am I bringing them back into the Father's house? How am I showing them the love of Him? Oh, it's all well and nice. We can come in and, yeah, Yeshua died for you, everything's fine. And then I treat you like the world treats you. Think about this stuff. God is so caring that He even sees the accidental and brings them in. Let me just read this next piece and then we can close. However, if someone hates his fellow member of the community and he lies in wait for him, attacks him, strikes him a death blow, and then flees to one of these cities, manipulates the system, then the leaders of his own town are to send and bring him back from there and hand him over to the next of king and venture to be put to death. You are not to pity him. Rather, you must do an end of shedding of innocent blood in Israel. Put an end to it. If you think you can get away with it, they will try. But there's something that no world system has here. God, who sees everything. Remember, they will investigate it. They will go against 2 or 3 witnesses. They will hear everything to make sure, to be sure, to be sure. But don't hold back. If this man chose to be, his fruit is death, that's all he gets. That should scare you. Because if you do not speak life, what are you doing? So what is your fruit? When we take a magnifying scope or we come and we sit in your house, what should we hear? Life or death?
Life.
Am I going to hear it? If I have to sit and listen to the way you interact with your spouse, or the way you interact with your children, the way you interact at work, am I going to hear it? Maybe in your hobbies. On the soccer field. Because he's looking down. Yes, this is hard, huh? Are we going to hear it? Then things will go well with you. Who's this mitzvah for? God or you? let's kind of believe what he's about and say, right, if we do this, things will be better for us. It's nice to argue. Everybody wins. It's not about your point of view. It's not about your perception of what you perceive they have done. Why don't you stop, talk to them. Open up this thing your mouth is and investigate it a little bit before you lose your nut. I promise you, by the time you've finished investigating it and shaking up and putting yourself on the side, you won't want to lose your nut because you realize it will probably be a small thing that you want to fight about. It is about growing. It is about moving forward. How are we doing for time? Can I go 2 minutes? It's my boss, I have to check that. You are not to move your neighbor's boundary marker, and you are to place where the people put it long ago in the inheritance soon to be yours in the land Adonai your God is giving you to possess. Don't think that you can skimp your neighbor 10 meters or 5 meters and all the rest of it. God put down that marker. To steal from your neighbor is to steal from God. What he has given your boss is for his stewardship, not yours. If he thought it was for you, he would have given it to you. Someone else's money is not your money. Someone else's wall is not your wall. Treat your neighbor with as much dignity as you would treat this, because God is the one who put him in control of that. Pray for them. Love them. Do what you need to do. One witness alone will not be sufficient to convict a person of any offense of sin of any kind. Of any kind. Any sin. The matter will be established only if there are 2 or 3 witnesses testifying against it. If a malicious person comes forward and gives false testimony against someone, then both the man involved in the controversy are to stand before Adonai. I love that. They are to stand before God, not before anybody else. Again, ultimately you will answer to him. You're either going to look at him and you're going to go, Daddy, I'm home, and he's going to smile and you're going to go, come sit down, or you're going to hide behind the guy in front of you. Wasn't me. Oh, but it was. You are responsible for your choices. Stand before Adonai, before the Kohanim and the judges in office at the time. The judges are to investigate carefully. If they find that the witness is lying or has given false testimony against his brother, you are to do to him what he intended to do to his brother. In this way you will put an end to such wickedness among you. Stop your nonsense. Those who remain will hear about it, be afraid, and no longer commit such wickedness among you. How many of you tried to pull the wool over your parents' eyes so that you could get away with something that you thought was a good idea? And when they found out a few times in a row, did you try again? No, because they see everything. I don't know how they see, but they do. I remember we sneaking out one day, school holidays, found all loose change in the pockets of the couches, and we walked down the road to the fun factory to go play TV games. My mom said no. Anyway, when she came home, she said, I saw you at the fun factory. Found out 15 years later it was my little sister who ratted us out. How did you know? I've got eyes everywhere. Do that again, you'll be destroyed. 15 years. You don't take a chance with someone who's got eyes everywhere, right? What I find funny is people will try to pull it over the wool of the priest's eyes or someone else's eyes like that, but they forget God. He's there with you while you're doing it. Think about that. Show no pity, life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. As what is measured. If you were going to steal an ox, you were going to repay that ox. You have broken down that man's character, you will spend time building that man's character. Do not go, oh well, you hit that person on the back of the head, therefore we're taking your 7 Series BMW. Doesn't work. It is about balancing what is right and what is good and what is just. Is that making sense? Any questions, any thoughts? Deep. Great time is happy time. You push that button, please.